right, thanks for staying tuned. Welcome back. Of course, there is disappointment at all this. There is disappointment when people get mobilized and mobilize. They mobilize and they mobilize and mobilize, and then they find that
it's like getting to the climax, and
that's
then
it, and then it drops.
Yeah.
But again, on the other side, there is the fact that sometimes the process must be up and down if at the end of the day everybody is going to be happy with the process.
To ensure that it's credible.
And that it's credible, free, and fair. We encourage you, as we said at the start of this segment, to send in a 30-second video.
That's right.
To our social media platforms, just expressing what your first reaction was on hearing of the news of the postponement of this election.
Send that to hashtag the verdict, hashtag 2019 elections. On Twitter, it's at Channels TV, and of course on Instagram, it's Channels Television. So tell us your reaction, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and our team is ready to collect it all online.
Now we're moving on maybe to a less partisan, politically partisan, that is, side of the discussion. We're being joined for this by Channels Television's election consultant and the former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission, Professor Chidi Odinkalu. There he is in our Abuja studios, as well as Mr. Wale Oluwale, who is a political analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us. Good morning.
Now, Professor Odinkalu, let me start with you. What was your first reaction on hearing about this postponement?
I've got to confess it did not come to me as too much of a surprise. If you recall our conversation here yesterday, I'd picked up that something like this was on the cards well before it broke last night. And strictly speaking, I was not too surprised. That said, I should also say that I would have wished, and I suspect that INEC itself would probably have desired, if not wished, that they were a little more candid with Nigerians much earlier on in the lead up to this. Quite clearly, there are some things that INEC as an institution is in a bit of a difficulty to talk about openly. And I do think that sometimes it's necessary to be honest with the citizens. And hopefully going forward, INEC will be a lot more robust in its public communications. That's the most I can say publicly.
Okay, Professor Odinkalu, another question that we're getting is, this postponement is for 1 week. Is 1 week enough from what you saw on ground? Because a lot of the viewers who are commenting on our hashtag kept saying, oh, there's no activity at my polling units. Even areas where they claim to have mobilized materials and election, this and that, nothing of the sort. So the question is, the way you see it, will 1 week do it?
Hopefully 1 week we'll be able to do it. But look, INEC is operating in exceptionally difficult political and logistical circumstances. So I don't think we should minimize that. I'm not a spokesman for them, and I hope that a spokesperson for them. I'm hoping at some point they'll be able to show up on this studio to explain themselves a little more fully. But their situation is pretty difficult. I see that we focused this morning on the postponement and the logistics. But in my view, there was something at least as big yesterday, which is the story, this alleged story of the killing of 66 people in Kajuru, in Kaduna. And that story, if you noticed, was broken by the Kaduna State Governor with his personal publicist, Muyiwa Adike, standing by his shoulder. No police officer, no SSS officer, no security person in the vicinity. And he was throwing out words that were calculated to be very incendiary on the eve of very difficult elections. about a location that is very difficult and has had historical problems with violence across communities. And he was dropping these bromides like he was on some substance, with all due respect. And I spent all of last night trying to verify from all the sources in Kajuru, and nobody can verify or substantiate that there has been a killing of 66 people in Kajuru over the past few days. And INEC has got to deal with this kind of reality. Okay? It is not just logistics. It is politicians with all manner of designs. And I think it is important, as we deal with the story of this question of postponement, to begin to call out politicians to order. You cannot, on the eve of a very difficult election, as a state governor, stand by yourself with your publicist and be talking about the killing of 66 people of one ethnic group and be talking about it with a celebratory air. That is beyond irresponsible. And I think people across all political divides must call out the Kaduna State governor. And any other governor in this country who tries this kind of thing on the eve of this kind of event in our country must be called out.
If I get you right, Professor Odikalu, what you're saying is that this story about the killing, what the governor actually said was the killing of 66 Fulanis. That was the phrase he used. That what you're saying is that it may just as well have been a hoax, since you haven't been able to confirm it from any of the people that you know in the area.
I am saying this with every sense of responsibility. All I spend my life doing around this election is dealing with violence and atrocities. And when I heard this story yesterday, as I said, I spent the entire night calling up all the sources I know in Kajuru. And I spend a lot of time working on southern Kaduna. So I have a lot of colleagues across all divides, community leaders, faith leaders. These are not politicians. Community leaders, faith leaders, people who live in the neighborhood, professionals who care about what happens in these communities, who don't live in Kaduna or Kafanchan, who are living in Kajuru. And not one person can substantiate. What is it? There were some killings in Kajuru last week, up until about Saturday or Sunday. The best numbers we can get, and every life matters, so I'm not saying this carelessly, about 10, 11 people were reportedly killed in Kajuru about Sunday. As a matter of fact, there are still victims from that killing at St. Gerard's Hospital in Kaduna. The governor indeed was at St. Gerard's Hospital on Tuesday. When did this killing that he talks about happen? No bodies, no police officer, no SSS, no sites, no cameras. And I challenge any medium in the country and beyond Nigeria, let us all go to Kajuru and let the governor join us and let him tell us where he got these bodies from. And let him show up with Muyiwa Adekeye and with Samuel Arunwa, who is his spokesperson. And let us all go there, because this is too serious for anybody to make. I say this as a Nigerian who believes in this country, who believes every life matters. This is too serious for any governor to say and get away with at this election.
Mr. Oluwale, I'm finding it difficult now to come to you, but I must, and first I must start as we have with all our guests this morning. What was your first reaction upon hearing about this postponement?
Thank you, Ladi. Let me make a quick correction. The name is Wale Oluwade.
Oluwade. My apologies. My apologies.
The issue of the postponement. As a Nigerian, let me say I'm deeply embarrassed. I am deeply scandalized. I'm disappointed. And then I'm angry. You know, INEC had 4 years to plan for these elections. In between, they've had, INEC, by their own estimates, have conducted about 175 off-season elections, including governorship elections in Edo State, Anambra, Ondo State, Ekiti, and just recently, September last year, Osun State. And so I'm at a loss. And I'm sure there are tens of millions of Nigerians who feel the same way that I feel. How did this debacle, how did we find ourselves in this very, scandalous situation that not a week before, not 2 weeks, not a month before today, it was just this, this morning, actually, 2:44 a.m., that INEC surreptitiously would announce while people were sleeping, hoping to wake up in the morning to go, exercise their civic duties, that the elections have been postponed, And it speaks to, why this society, why this nation is the way it is, our general ineptitude of leadership, and it's also smacks of, high-level impunity that permeates, a broad spectrum of leadership, of governance architecture from the 3 tiers of governance. Because nothing is going to happen. The INEC chairman, has done this. He will not resign. None of the national commissioners will resign, because it's business as usual. Because Prof. Mahmoud, told the whole world that all the money is needed, as budgeted for, as appropriated, by the National Assembly, has been received. He said all the plans were in place. Everything was going on smoothly. On Thursday, when news filtered in that the president was going to make a broadcast, of course, there had been insinuations and rumors, that the elections were going to be postponed. And I was apprehensive on Thursday evening, but I listened to the president, and of course, I was glad in that, the elections were not postponed. And I heaved a great sigh, as many Nigerians, I believe, did, only for this to happen. Like I said, for goodness sake, laddie, if we can't put a man on the moon in this 21st century, Nigeria can't put a man on the moon, we can build a space rocket, fine. Can't we conduct simple elections, for goodness sake?
Okay, Mr.
Can't we
Lua,
get something as simple as conducting elections right? We're talking about logistical problems. What is the big deal about logistics, for goodness sake? Well, I'm a management consultant. I do management. So there's no plan that is complete without, scenario forecast. You play scenarios. You make contingency plans based on those scenarios. Because otherwise, the plan is not complete. So did the hierarchy at INEC, didn't they make scenarios? Didn't they plan for this contingency?
Sorry, Mr. Luwade, let me just ask you quickly. Apparently, logistics is a big deal because from 2011 down, somehow logistics always comes in as a reason why the polls are postponed. But let me turn your attention to the reason why. Looking at voter apathy, for instance, some conspiracy theorists are saying, oh, they're trying to reduce the amount of people who come out because people will be disenchanted and not come out at all. There are so many considerations concerning voter apathy for this particular election, from the electoral register, how cleaned up is that, to how many people are going to turn out, to who collected their PVC. Do you see this as maybe what people are saying, that, oh, perhaps this is an attempt to reduce voter apathy? Will people now decide it's not worth it and not want to come out as a result?
I humbly, and with due respect, disagree with you, Ijoma. If anything, it is this postponement, that may work adversely, to suppress voter turnout. Because the mood, if you gauge Nigerian mood nationwide, there is an excitement, there is an eagerness for Nigerians to come out, to vote in these elections. I have not seen, and I've been around quite a while, I haven't seen, as much enthusiasm, as much excitement. Yes, of course, there are some level of fears and worries, of violence and incidents of malpractice. But Nigerians from the north to the south, west and east were waiting for today to come out in their millions and exercise their franchise, only for this to happen. So like I'm saying about planning, INEC had 4 years to plan for this. And over a year ago, Prophet Mahmoud, rolled out the timetable, culminating in today. And every step of the way, you know, from the primaries to the nomination of candidates to post-primary, you know, litigation and all of that. The timetable was rolled out, and INEC followed it diligently. How come it was just this morning that suddenly INEC, you know, decided to pull the brakes on these elections and call for a one-week postponement? Like I said, are we saying there aren't enough competent people, capable people at INEC who knows about, you know, making scenarios and planning for contingencies? You know, such that you do not deploy.
I need to put you on pause. I need to put you on pause for a moment. We need to take a break. And when we return, we will come back to this so that you can conclude your point, and then we'll go to Professor Dinkalu, because he's raised a very serious point, which is not logistics-based, and which needs to be examined a little bit further. But that's after this.